The Space Marine is humanity's best warrior. It's no surprise here. But one of the underdogs in Warhammer 40K is that of the Planetary Defense Force member. Whenever something happens, be it Xenos or Heretic or Demonic, the Planetary Defense Force is usually the first ones to combat it. And then it'll elevate to probably the Astra Militarum, or maybe even the Sisters of Battle. And then when all else fails, we have the Space Marines to come in. So it's no surprise here that Space Marines are gonna pretty much win against any enemy they go up against, especially humans. However, that's not always the case. Here we have two instances that pits humanity against Space Marines. And you would think that a Space Marine would just clobber the hell out of them. Well, let's find out if you're right. So let's go ahead and dive into the first excerpt that pits the Planetary Defense Force members against an Astartes. And then we're going to be looking at more augmented humans with bionics, humans that have access to better weapons and war gear to see how they fare against the Space Marine. So without further ado, let's dive right in. Damn, swore Major Helios Bextor of the 33rd Termagant PDF Regiment as he watched the blue armored warriors of the Ultramarines go to ground in the rocks below his position. He'd given the order to open fire too soon and cursed his impatience. But who could blame him? The thought of facing the mighty Space Marines was enough to scare even the most courageous of men. And Major Bextor was not fool enough to think that he was such a man. Though he knew he was not a man of great bravery, he was responsible for being a competent military thinker, and he felt the defenses were as secure as he'd been able to make them. 2 full companies defended the mine, alongside a mortar platoon equipped with incendiary rounds. Sheets of flame rose from each impact. Craters blasted into the soil of the mountains, spewing thick smoke from the flames. Uriel caught the stink of promethium in the air and frowned in puzzlement. Incendiaries? Was the enemy commander mad? Against lightly armored troops, incendiaries would sow havoc and panic, but against warriors clad in power armor, they were practically useless. Then he realized that the enemy commander was PDF, and almost certainly had no prior experience fighting the Angels of Death. Huge banks of black smoke rose from the burning streams of fuel, drifting and spreading slowly in the mountain breeze and obscuring the combatants from one another. The Ultramarines had just been given the cover they desired. Major Bextor punched the air as the autocannon cut a swath through the Ultramarines' ranks. He fired over the parapet into the charging warriors. This was his first battle, and he'd begun to enjoy himself immensely. They were holding off the Space Marines, though the analytical part of his brain told him that there were less coming at his position that had begun the assault. He attributed this to the initial awe at the size and the apparent power of the Space Marine, but now he had their measure, and they did not seem nearly so fearsome. He would be a hero, the man who had beaten the Ultramarines, the men who would tell tales of this battle in the regimental mess hall for decades to come. Bextor reached for another energy cell, smiling at the trooper next to him. "Soon, see these buggers off, eh, son?" he joked. The boy's head exploded, showering Bextor with blood and brains as he fell back. Repulsed beyond words at the horrid death of the trooper, he lost balance and fell from the firing step, thudding painfully into the hard-packed ground. He turned in the direction of the shot that had come in time to see the hulking figure clambering over the lip of the mineshaft, blackened giants with hideously grinning masks of fury. They struck his line like a thunderbolt, hacking men in two with great sweeps of shrieking swords or pumping explosive rounds into their bodies from roaring pistols. He roared onto his side, feeling blood run from a gash in his forehead, weeping in terror at these dark nightmares that had emerged from the bowels of the planet. Chattering gunfire ripped his men to pieces, and swords surely forged in the heart of chaos chopped and chopped, severing limbs and ending lives. All around him, his men were screaming and dying. Weakly, he pushed himself to his feet and picked up his fallen lasgun. Death surrounded him, but he vowed he would take one of these devils screaming into hell with him. He heard a crashing impact behind him, and he spun. A black shape emerged from the smoke, with a grinning skull mask, raising a golden weapon high. Bextor felt his knees sag in terror, and his gaze fixed upon the wicked eagle atop the golden staff that the black armored figure held. Its red eyes seemed to shine the color of blood, as its energy-wreathed edge clove him in two. And there you have it, guys. So clearly, Planetary Defense Force members do not know how to combat the Space Marines. We have to remember that the Space Marines are like a mythological figure to humanity. They are the Emperor's angels, akin to basically us nowadays seeing like the gods before us. Like, we almost believe them to be myth in the 40K era. Space Marines are so rare, and chances are, as a human, you'll never see a Space Marine, let alone fight one. So now that we're fighting against Space Marines, humanity doesn't know what weapons to use, nor what would be effective to actually take them down. We see here that incendiary rounds are just gonna bounce right off their armor and do nothing but give them cover. And not just that, but they have just las pistols and las guns. That's going to do nothing against the armor of a Space Marine, let alone Space Marines just react faster, they're stronger, they're tougher. These guys had no chance. So let's go ahead and flip the script and see how augmented humans deal with a single Space Marine. Amadeus looked up from his work, staring through the smoke. He didn't answer her. He just started running. The decking quivered beneath its heavy tread as he powered towards us. Something so huge had no right to move that fast. I realized a mere moment before Tiberia. I was in cover, behind a bulkhead, when the bolts started crashing around us. She hurled herself at my side, crouching behind the dense steel door I was using as a shield. It's not gonna last. I know. I clutched my engager to my chest and glanced at Tiberia. The ceramite bootfalls pounded closer and closer. My heart was thudding just as fast. 100 dead heretics and cultists to my name, yet I was trembling like a newborn in winter. Death hammered its way down the corridor towards us. "We take him together," I said, sounding far surer than I felt. "What do we do?" The door exploded against us. My miscalculation almost killed us both, as the Adeptus Astartes warrior chose not to take cover. He instead chose to break through ours with a bull rush charge. The bulkhead was ripped from its hinges, crashing into the deck. Tiberia and I were thrown across the gantry floor in clatters of carapace armor. I could hear him over the cacophony, the predatory snarling of his armored joints, the sickly atomic kneeing of his power pack. Behind me, above me, ever so close. I moved faster than ever before, or ever since. I rolled onto my back, bringing my engager up towards the towering shadow, firing at point-blank range. I literally had one split second of vindication that engagers were Space Marine killers, and he was close enough to hit. That no matter my fear, he couldn't survive a blast like this. The shotgun roared in my hands, but I missed. The shadow above me was a blur of motion. My hands moved without thought, chambering another round. Crunch click, I fired again, and missed again. My senses were half a second behind the warrior's blurring movements. As I fired, he was already moving away with protesting armor joints. As I chambered yet another shell, he was raising his blade. He kicked the engager from my hands, hard enough that my fully bionic arm sent a knife of pain through my shoulder. Gunless and on the ground before this god of war, I discharged my terminus eye. The blast lasered through my helmet, destroying my visor, and lancing past the shadow's raged arms. It can't be. I missed again. The terminus beam relied on striking where I was looking, and I could barely follow his movements. Tiberia's engager barked from the side. The descending sword sparked with detonating shell fragments and whirled from the warrior's hand. She caught his weapon, but we couldn't hit him. We could literally barely see him. One of us, I wasn't sure whether it was me or her, shouted to aim for the head, and the other yelled. They were trying. The warrior in white moved back in the same furious blur of motion. My reaching grip found my fallen engager, and I fired again, aiming for his head. This time he buckled, staggering off balance. I didn't see if I hit him. I could only guess. When he turned away, I saw the crimson basilisk of his white pauldron, the serpent circling an orb that could only represent a subjugated world. My engager shot brought us both a precious few heartbeats to scrabble away. We moved like panicked villagers before a tidal wave. Nowhere to go, nowhere to run, fleeing in mindless animal instinct. I'd only seen mentors and spears move the way the pure moved. To be on the wrong side of that breathtaking violence was a lesson I'd gladly never have learned. I made it to my feet in time to meet the warrior's fist. The force was unreal, a beast's kick to the sternum, driving all breath from my body, shattering my carapace breastplate, hurling me against the corridor wall with enough force that I felt my helmet crack and my skull crack inside it. My cheekbone crunched like pebbles. For a second I was sure I was dead, down on my knees against the wall, blinded by grayness, slavering bile into my rebreather. I groped for the engager that had tumbled from my grip. I think I said something, but I have no recollection of what or why. Tiberia's shotgun bellowed. The shadow above me thrashed, but didn't move away. A talon of ceramite tore at my face, ripping my helmet free, and I screamed because my eye came away with it. I felt the snap, the disconnection of the optic bindings from my broken eye socket. Tiberia's engager roared once again. Shell fragments scratched me with cutting heat. I thought with dizzy surety that she had hit me. The warrior cast me down to the deck again. Tiberia cried out as the shadow giant moved on her. I felt, but didn't see the slam as Tiberia struck the corridor wall. One last time my hand slapped on my fallen engager. I raised it, glaring with my remaining eye, firing at the brute's back. Once, crunch-click. Twice, crunch-click. Thrice, crunch-click. The pure turned to me. His red-eye lenses blazed. He took a single step towards me and went to his knees with a crash louder than any other yet. He raised an empty hand to the blown-out ruination of his chest, where his fingertips stroked over the mangled ceramite crater, filled with red pulp that had been his organs and flesh mere seconds ago. And still he came for me. He fell to the deck, dragging himself towards me with both hands. I fired my last round, taking him in the faceplate, snapping his head to the side as the engager round bored through his skull and blasted a red spray out the back of his helm. Laughter gargled from the half of his head that remained. He spoke, though the words were mangled without half of his face. My reply was wordless, furious fear. I screamed as I dived on him, and in my hands was the priceless power sword that I'd neither earned nor deserved. I rammed it down with both hands, hitting his body. The second blow dragged through his spine in a clean plunge, carving deep into the deck beneath him. I know there was a third, as well as a fourth, but I lost count after the fifth. There were more. I just didn't know how many more. and finally he lay still. I stumbled from his back, crawling away from what I prayed was his corpse. "Throne of the God Emperor," I panted, slumping with my back to the corridor wall. "Throne of the God Emperor." And here we have a much better showing for a technologically enhanced human. Now let's not forget that it's not just a regular human. Like, this guy said that he has bested a bunch of cultists and other combatants. He's got a laser eye, a all completely full metal arm, and he's got a freaking shotgun. And still, he narrowly avoids death, getting his eye ripped out of his socket, his jaw crushed. This guy should have been dead. And let's not forget, there was another person there too. I forgot her name already, but yeah, she was also helping him out, taking the attention from him, because if it was a one-on-one, clearly this guy would have been dead. So this just goes to show you that two technologically enhanced humans can win against a Space Marine. I mean, it took a lot to get him down, like you said. A bunch of shotgun blasts, power sword slashes. So yeah, this just goes to show you just how crazy Space Marines are, just how durable they can be. When you think a Space Marine is dead, do not underestimate them, because they are probably still going to come after you. So let me know your thoughts down below. What do you think about this insane showing of just how resilient humanity can be, and also how dumb they could be? So I think we all knew how tough and awesome Space Marines are. This just goes to show you that they literally are the best of the best when it comes to what humanity can throw against the horrors of the galaxy. Thanks again, guys, for watching. As always, like, comment, share, and we'll see you in the next one. This has been the Sound Alchemist, part of One Mind Syndicate, and I'll catch you then. Peace.
Always used to put my freedom first in any situation.